Adi. I was reading about Ming China, and I have to ask, how did a place with that many rebellions, invasions, and civil wars still manage to keep its culture so intact? Wouldn't all that chaos just tear everything apart?
You'd think so, right? But Ming China is this wild case where, despite all that turmoil, their culture stayed super consistent, almost stubbornly so. In fact, some historians argue that China at the time was one of the most uniform and intolerant societies ever, at least politically and ideologically. That intolerance actually stifled a lot of intellectual growth, especially anything that challenged the status quo. But at the same time, this uniformity helped preserve a really strong sense of identity, even through centuries of instability. Let me tell you a story about how that tension played out, especially in their art, literature, and even everyday life.
So, even with all that drama, they still clung to their traditions? How did that work? Exactly.
Well, in the Ming period, a wealthy middle class started to emerge, and they wanted all the luxury goods the royals enjoyed. Think lacquerware, super detailed ceramics, fancy teapots. Artisans started signing their work, which was a big deal. It was like a guarantee of quality, but also a shout out to individual talent in a society that usually put the group above the person. And get this, there were so many scams and fakes that a guy literally wrote a book called The Book of Swindles. It listed out all the ways you could get ripped off, including stuff like a Buddhist monk claims a cow is his mother. Ooh.
Wait, what? A monk pretending a cow is his mom? Just to scam someone?
I know, right? That's how creative things got. But the point is, as people got richer and more educated, they started caring about who made their stuff. It's kind of like how today people want artisanal or branded products instead of generic ones.
Okay, so the middle class is booming. People are flexing with their fancy teapots. But what about culture? Did this change how people wrote or told stories?
Really, the rise of literacy led to a crazy explosion of fiction. Some of China's most famous novels came out during the Ming, but here's the twist. Because fiction was seen as lowbrow, authors often used fake names. Stories like Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which mixes history, legend, and fantasy, basically rewrote how people remembered the past. Characters got turned into heroes or villains for centuries based on how they were portrayed in these novels.
That sounds a lot like how movies and TV today shape who we think are the good guys or bad guys in history.
Exactly. And you see it with Journey to the West too. Monkey King, Talking Pig, magic weapons, fighting demons. It's wild, it's fun, and it's basically China's most successful cultural export. It's inspired movies, anime, comics, you name it. Like how Marvel movies today reach all over the world. Journey to the West did that for Chinese culture.
So their fiction kind of took over reality? People remembered the stories more than the real events?
For sure. It's like how we remember gladiators from Gladiator, or pirates from Pirates of the Caribbean. Not necessarily accurate, but super influential. And then you get books like Outlaws of the Marsh, which was set way earlier, but was really a dig at the Ming government. It's all about outlaws banding together against a corrupt state, kind of like Robin Hood, but with way more characters and way more violence.
Wasn't Outlaws of the Marsh also about people on the fringes? Martial artists, swindlers, fortune tellers? It sounds like a whole underworld almost.
Yeah, they called it Jianghu, literally rivers and lakes. It's this metaphorical landscape where all the misfits hang out, rejecting the state's authority but living by their own codes of honor. The characters were rough but righteous heroes. And the story wasn't just about crime, it was a critique of how corrupt and broken the government was becoming.
So, like, people read these stories and saw their own struggles reflected back at them?
But exactly, and it didn't stop there. One of the earliest pieces of fan fiction, Jinping Mei, spun off from Outlaws of the Marsh. It focused on the scandalous lives of women and the corrupt men around them. It was so explicit and critical of the government that it got banned a lot. But it was also the first major Chinese novel with female protagonists, and it exposed the hypocrisy of a society where powerful men could do what they wanted, but women got shamed for stepping out of line.
That hits close to home. We are still arguing today about double standards and who gets to tell their story, right?
Yup, And that's why these books matter today. They weren't just entertainment, they were social commentary. And if you look at the way people react to online scandals or how we debate who gets to be a hero or a villain in the media, it's the same dynamic. Who controls the narrative? Who gets shamed or praised? That started centuries ago.
I'm also struck by how these stories became more real than reality for people. Like, if you repeat a story enough, it can define how a whole culture sees itself. Heroes, villains, even what's normal. Glenn,
Absolutely. And it's not just a Chinese thing. Every society does this. Think about how American movies shape global ideas about the US, or how social media now lets anyone spin a story that can go viral and change public opinion overnight.
so in a way, Ming China's mix of strict tradition and creative storytelling is like the internet today. Everyone wants to shape the narrative, but there's still pressure to conform, and people get punished for breaking the rules.
That's a great comparison. The tools change. Printing press then, social media now, but the battles over who gets to tell the story and who gets to be believed are as fierce as ever.
So, if I'm getting this right, Ming China kept its culture strong by being strict and uniform, but the cracks showed up in art and fiction, where people could challenge the system, even if the stories sometimes mattered more than the truth. And that's kind of what we see today, right? The platforms might be different, but the struggle over who gets to control the story is still going.
Exactly. The past doesn't repeat, but it sure rhymes. Ming China's story shows us that culture is both a shield and a battleground, whether you're talking about ancient novels or viral TikToks. If we want to understand how stories shape power and who we are, looking back at the Ming might just explain a lot about today.
I'll definitely never look at a teapot or a trending hashtag the same way again. That's it for today's episode on Fun Learn Talks, where stories from business, technology, and history keep your curiosity alive. If you enjoyed the journey, make sure to follow, rate, or share it with a fellow curious mind. And hey, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment or connect with us online. I'm Anu, and I'll catch you next time, right here on Fun Learn Talks. Until then, keep learning, keep wondering.